Hello and welcome to Creative Momentum with Meg. Susan, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about what your creative work is?
Right. I'm Susan Green, and my creative work uh, is writing. I've written or had published children's novels, a couple of picture storybooks, one non-fiction work, and an adult novel. And the children's books have been middle grade. And I also wrote five teenage romances under my romance name, which is
Oh,
Susan Lennox, and Lennox is my middle name. And I haven't had anything published for, I don't know, nearly 10 years now, and I've just got the writing bug again in a big way, and
beautiful.
it's lovely. So enjoying myself.
Excellent. When you say your middle grade books, I'm sure some listeners will know of this series. Do you
Oh,
want to tell the
yeah.
read this?
So it's the Verity Sparks series, and the first of them, The Truth About Verity Sparks, was a um, sort of a runner-up in the CBCA Awards in 2011, which was very exciting. Yeah. So,
Excellent, excellent. Uh, Susan, can you tell me with your writing, so you took a break and you've been drawn back into it, the bug got you again.
um,
Do you have a routine for your writing and is it different to what it used to be?
um, well, I've just set, I think the routine is different for each project in a way, but I've just settled into a writing in the morning. Um, it'll be about 3 or 4 hours in all. I take a break or take a few breaks. I've got a cranky old back, so um, if I'm being very good, I'll set a timer for 40 minutes, which ends up at about 50 minutes, by the time you get things done, and take a short break. Um, and sometimes in the afternoon, I'll just look at what I've written. And at the moment, I've decided to submit 10,000 words to Varuna for a residency. So I'm polishing, and frantically filling plot holes. So, and that is fun. And I did say I'd taken a break. So after, so in the say 9 years since I've worked on a project, I've actually written two children's novels and most of an adult novel, um, and kind of just everything's fizzled out. And I, I've had a couple of retreats with you, which the last one in particular was just, I don't know, just did the work for me, I guess. No, I did the work for me, but it was quite a freeing sort of an experience in lots of ways. Just, yeah, I can do this, and I can do it any way that I do it. I don't
Mm,
have to be strict with myself.
yeah.
I don't have to.
When you were writing your children's books, did you how was the routine for you different then?
Oh, yes, it was because of having contracts. It really means that because I've pretty much always had contracts, I've kind of structured things more tightly.
Mm,
I've been lucky enough for all of my writing career. So my first book was published in 87, and I've been very lucky for almost all of my writing career to work part-time and to have a very supportive partner or husband and
mm,
child and dog. Um, but I've found that having a contract kind of focuses the mind, and I think a lot tighter routine,
Mm.
and even to word counts and stuff like that. Yeah, which I'm not really doing at the moment, but it seems to work out that um, I'll be able to do about 500 to 1,000 words in a day of
Mm.
rough, and then I can. Um, uh, I usually will start the next day by um, going over what I've written the day before, because I find that really helps me to get going.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it's just got a really nice flow. And I think I said to you a, a couple of years ago that I just love that thing where your characters keep telling you things. They keep talking to you. You'll be in the shower and they just sort of there they are, their voices are, and I've got that happening, and it just makes me so happy. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
I do remember that moment a couple of years ago where, you were feeling, you know, I guess unhappy because your characters were not talking to you anymore.
Mm.
And to get that back just filled you with so much joy. And I think filled everyone at the retreat with so much joy as well. Um, now, so what you're writing now, are you doing that Monday to Friday, or is it?
No, no, I'm probably three days a week, weekdays, and it depends how I feel on the weekend. I suppose one of the things is that I turned 68 this year. Or I will turn 68 this year. I feel like I'm an old chook now, and I just don't want to lash myself anymore with productivity. And I guess the feeling is that I feel like I don't have to justify the breaths I take, my place on the planet by being productive.
Mm, mm,
Uh, I can just be. And if part of being is being, well, creative, so be it. And to try and think, well, that's not all that special either. It's just, I don't know, beingness. I'm sure there's some philosopher or Buddhist who's put this better than I am, but um, I just, losses, losing people to death and illness has, I don't know, it's just starting to make me think differently about the time that I have left, which I calculate will be about 18 years.
mm,
So,
mm.
so that's my thoughts. And yeah, I'd like to have a lot of fun with my writing.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of the Mary Oliver poem about, this one wild and precious
Mm,
life that we have.
yes.
Uh, and I love that, you've got to that point of going, I'm doing this because I want to do it, and I'm also not going to flog myself about it. So then tell me about your creative process, and has it changed over these? Do you go from plotting it all out first? Do you just, how do you start and how do you get going and how do you get to the end?
Oh, well, I probably start by a character will pop into my mind somehow. And I just worry like a dog with a bone about with that in my head for as long as it takes for me to come up with a first sentence or a first paragraph that I can start with, which is sort of like a hanger to put it on. And once I've got that, I will just start writing. I'm what, they call a pantser. I know how things are going to end, and I often have like scenes in my head along the way. But every time that I have tried to minutely plan something out, it's just seemed like such a bore and a drag, and it's never wanted to do that. So I think you have to go. I think you have to go with who you are. I don't even make many notes, and I'll come up with ideas, if I can't sleep or whatever, and I probably should write them down, but I don't. I just figure that the ones that stick, the ones that are good will stick, and they'll be there in my head for when I need them. So, and I love doing research because it just sparks so many things that I don't know, like little little branches that'll go in I think great, interesting directions, as long as I don't go too far down rabbit holes. I'm
Mm.
I'm very happy to do to do research, and I'll often do that. I'll start writing, and I'll usually write for 5 or 6 weeks, very steadily, and then I'll take a break for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks or something like that. And I'll often read non-fiction, mainly when I'm writing, actually, or different children's books, or different things, and that all feeds back in, and then I'll read it again and usually think, oh, what a load of crap. But the big breakthrough that I had when I was in my 20s was with that voice that says, this is crap. I don't know how I came to this. It just came to me. I realized that if I said to that voice that's saying, this is crap, yeah, it is, it's crap, but I'll finish it.
Yeah.
I shifted everything, and I started finishing things, which is really useful, because when you finish things, you can edit them and you can make them not so crap. And when I used to teach, community classes in writing, I'd tell people that, because I think that fight with the voice that says you're an imposter, this is bullshit, is so exhausting.
Mm.
And it was my way of sidestepping that completely, just agreeing, yeah, I'm going to finish. It's just
Mm.
different. Yeah.
I think that's such an important thing for so many people to hear, because finishing, my husband has a saying, he's always like, finishing is a good skill. And
Yes.
and I
Well, it's
think,
persistence, isn't it?
yeah, it is. It's that kind of
Yeah.
tenacity to go, all right, I'm going to finish this damn thing, even if I'm not feeling confident with it, but I'm going to finish it, because then I've got something to work with. And I know a lot of, I don't know, actually, if anyone's listening and they want to, add a comment to the show notes page, whether this is different for artists to writers.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of writers really struggle to finish that first draft. And, it's actually why I started working in this space, because I was so frustrated seeing people not finish a draft,
Mm.
and beautiful writers, amazing stories, but not finishing them. So that is a great skill to have learned in your 20s, Susan.
Yes. Yes. And it made such a difference. It
And also to
really.
have that encouraging voice for yourself.
Mm. Mm. And it's like, which doesn't mean I don't, you know, have the, what the hell am I doing this for? And who do I think I am? And why would anybody want to read that? I mean, it's pretty normal, I would say. And I know it's something my husband said to me, that, I kind of lose confidence at times between books or projects. And he says, but you've done it before, you can do it again. And I say, yeah, but it's different. Each one's
Mm.
different. So I've done that, but can I do that? And I suppose that's why I have this bit of a gestation time, where I have a character and I just fool around and probably procrastinate until I can't bear it anymore, and I get started. And
Mm.
I don't know, I shift gear, I suppose, and boom. How
Mm.
lucky am I?
Mm.
I feel very lucky
Mm.
that somehow that's all fallen together. for me. So
Is it a
yeah,
process that has changed over time, or have you kind of, have you grown into this process, or was that there from pretty early on?
no, I think I've really grown into that process, and I think um, I think being having worked with with one very, very good editor who you learn so much from working with a good editor, and realizing that you can polish and fix just about anything really. um and the big structural stuff, which is often the thing that's eluded me in the past, I think I'm able to now, with experience, step back and look with a pretty cold eye about. Uh, I don't know that I could do it with somebody else's stuff, but I can step back with a pretty cold eye and no, that's not working out. Um, Two really good editors actually, and one of them I employed. She was to work on the book that ended up being called How Bright Are All Things Here. And there was one character who was quite big, and she said no, it was a male character. And she said no, and she explained her thoughts on why it unbalanced the book, and I got it. I just really liked him, and it's like that kill your darling sort of thing. Is I didn't want to let him go, but I came to see that he unbalanced everything, and I think I love, as I said, I love doing bits of research, and I'll go off on a tangent and put all sorts of fancy things in and read it again and think, no, out. And I've become very, very unattached, I think, to most stuff. And that's
Is it
good.
is that in the second draft that you become unattached, or
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In second and subsequent
subsequent?
draft. Yeah. First draft, like a lot of us, I tend to try and just get it out.
Mm.
When I'm stuck, I will, or treading water, I'll revise. But treading water is better than stuck, isn't it? As a
Yeah.
um,
Well,
I'll
it's
revise.
still movement, isn't there,
Yeah,
when you're
yeah,
treading water? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Moving in place. Yeah. So I mean, I find the different ways that writers work is endlessly fascinating, and I love hearing the similarities and differences in the way we work, and there's always something to learn, I think, and add to your little repertoire. I forget who it was. Just started off in the morning, and they made a cup of tea that they took in with them to start, so there was something kind of familiar and comforting to have there as you start and settle in. So I do that. Yeah, all sorts
Mm.
of little things over the
That
years.
um, I love that kind of ritual behavior also, because it helps the brain know that this is what I'm doing. Um,
Yeah. And there are times when I'll use a writing candle too, for um, and I don't use it all the time for I don't know, I would say for like workaday things. I don't, tend to use it, but for when I'm wanting to write something difficult, or say something that I hope will be moving, I'll add the writing candle too, which is, a nice thing to do, to just, this is a bit special, I'll add
mm.
this. Mm.
Shout out to the candle using writers. I am as well. I love a
Yeah,
nice scented, for
yeah,
me, it has to be essential oils, and there's certain fragrances that really help evoke
yeah,
emotion for me.
yeah, yeah. Somebody gave me once, knowing that I liked writing candles, one, and it was it was something like, I don't know how you say it, neroli.
Oh yeah, neroli.
And it was just so bloody wrong. Just, oh, this
It's a
is
very
rich.
particular scent, the neroli.
Oh, anyway, I passed it on. Just,
Yeah, yeah. I use candles, and one of my sons, I came home one day and found, I was like, oh, what's that scent? And I went into his room, he'd taken my candle and was using it. I'm like, you can't do that.
oh,
Like it stops
no,
up my brain.
in the wrong place.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I had to go out and buy him another candle because he's like, but I just like the candle. I'm like, oh, you can't have that one though.
And it is interesting because the really sweet sort of florally smells don't work so much for me. I've much tended towards the more sort of woodsy ones, or sometimes citrusy.
Mm.
And I quite like sort of old lady smell, but I quite like lavender too, because I find that's just it's a lovely smell.
Mm.
I've got the other. I've got a very small workspace deliberately, because it means I can't foof about too much. So
Mm.
that's another thing. And I'd be happy like in a broom cupboard with a bit of a window, because the
Peapot.
smaller the space, the less I'm going to procrastinate and dust and
Yeah.
prettify. You know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I love all of these things, Susan, because you've been at it for a while and you've worked out the things that work for you and the
yeah.
things that don't, and which is, I think, probably so useful for people to hear. Um, where where do you get your inspiration from? Is it people or places or ideas,
Um,
books, art?
I yeah, was it Elizabeth Gilbert who had that idea that ideas are floating around and they find you?
Yep.
So I I can't I sort of feel like um things come together. I'll read a book, or I'll see a film, or I'll see somebody on public transport, or something will just be this little germ, and then things seem to add to it. And well, the the inspiration for the first Verity Sparks book, The Truth About Verity Sparks, was, for instance, I was in Melbourne and I was up at the Parliament House end, and I had been walking around Melbourne and for some reason paying particular notice to all the very, very grand Victorian buildings, because Melbourne was one of the great Victorian cities of the world.
Mm.
And just suddenly, not suddenly, I started to think about what it would have felt like to have been someone really very powerless, surrounded by this architecture of power, what it would feel like to be powerless, and who's going to be powerless. And I thought a little girl, and she just came to me, a little 13-year-old girl who'd been a foundling. And the story changed, and she wasn't in the end a foundling, but yeah, not a working girl, but little girl who worked,
Mm.
um, and was poor, and easily overlooked and easily bullied, and all of those things. And I don't know where the magical, well, not the slightly magical psychic skills that she had came in, but things just added to her as I went along. And I find that it's a serendipitous thing. And over the years, I've learned not to worry too much, to think it'll come. And often, if I sleep on something in the morning, I don't mean I dream it, but in the morning, oh, that's it. And my dear dog is departed, but I used to, dog used to help me write by reminding me, you need a walk. And a walk will, I think thinking and walking pace are great friends.
Mm.
And I would often, after a bout of writing, go for a walk, and something would, I don't know, just something about walking just jolted everything together into the right spot. Oh, I can go on. Could have been just oxygen.
No, there is actually science behind that.
Okay.
When we've got either we're stuck or just got something to work out, going for a walk, that physical movement and just throwing the brain a question or,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to do next. That walking, it actually works with the brain to help come up with the ideas because,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard me say before that we know the answers, we just don't always know how to find the answers. So
Yes.
the walking definitely helps. So
Well, I've got a little saying to myself, which is very childish, and from a nursery rhyme where little Bo Peep, she lost her sheep, and it's, you leave them alone and they will come home wagging their tails behind them. So I figure what I need I'll leave it alone and it will come home, hopefully wagging its tail, which
oh, what a great
because
analogy for writing that little nursery
so
rhyme is.
so that's what I tell myself.
Yeah.
I will add just words of wisdom. My other mantra at the moment is I'm too old for this shit. So that's just another one, which applies to, all that lack of confidence and worry and I think, well, if I've only got these many years, I'm just too old for all of that shit. I just get on with it. Well, and I was a lot more sensitive when I was younger, and I've become quite insensitive now that I'm old.
You grew up in a creative family. Did that inspire you to be a writer or not?
Um, I think the very good luck that I had was growing up in a family where drawing or painting or playing or writing was not so much encouraged as it was just seen as pretty normal, like it is for kids, to draw or to want to express themselves. There was no fuss made about it. I saw my dad painting or making art. There was no there was always sort of time and space to do these things. And so I think the normality of it was a terrific gift. And I do remember probably 7 or 8, and my mum had been really sick, and I got really worried about what if mum and dad both died and what would happen to me. And mum said I'd go to live with my uncle Stephen and Auntie Josie, who were lovely, lovely people. I loved them, but I knew that my auntie didn't like mess, and
Oh.
I remember thinking, I won't be able to paint. It's too messy. I think you're only allowed to play with a couple of toys at a time, because she ran it pretty tight. She had 3 kids and little close together, and she ran a tight ship. But I remember thinking, oh no. So selfishly, I didn't want my parents to die, so I didn't have to go and live with them.
Yeah, that's very understandable. Oh, I imagine, your creativity would have been quashed very quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
If you were to be chatting with someone who was early on in their creative career or just wanting to dabble with it, or they're stuck,
Yeah.
what wisdom would you want to share with them?
Um, I think I would share getting tight and stressed about this is and trying really hard is not the way to go, and maybe forget about it for a little bit and come back to it. That's my main thing. I think there's such a thing as trying too hard. So I don't know if that's helpful. Probably the other helpful thing, I think, is that rebuttal of the nasty voice. Just finish. Yeah.
Finish it.
Yeah. It's interesting that that's something you it's interesting. It's great. It's and it's obviously a common problem that it's something you picked up on.
Yeah, it's such a common problem, and I think, people talk about that middle third kind of slows them down when they're writing a novel, and that's where all the doubt creeps in, and suddenly life can take over, and it's easy to put it aside then, because what's the point? Especially if you don't have a contract, then, what's the point of finishing it? But when we finish it, there's such a great feeling for having done the thing. And then you've got something to work with. That first draft, I think, is really us telling ourselves the story. So then we know what we need to write.
And I think, I suppose the other thing is that, you can polish till doomsday. You actually have to finish your polishing too. Like you just have to say enough, because you just go forever. You just have to say, right, enough's enough.
Out you go.
Let it go.
Set you free.
It's really hard, and I've read this about other writers, and I certainly have had that feeling of emptiness when it's done, and they don't speak to you in the same way anymore because they're done, they've gone. It's really real. It's a bit of a post book sadness that you have, because it's big. You live with it every day while you're working on it.
Yeah, I wonder if, because I know some people who are listening might be in the second book problem, and or they've had rejections. What wisdom would you want to share with them about how to move on from that?
Oh, yeah, I think with rejections, I've been very lucky. I've had a lot of acceptances, and I've also had a share of rejections too. So, I'm and I had the very great luck to have acceptances early in my writing career. But I think I don't think I'm the best one to ask about that, because I think, when I read about people having, 20, 50, 100 rejections, I just think, oh my God. And that's why I've liked having an agent, because I had an agent for a number of years, and she sadly passed away. But I said to her, don't tell me. Don't tell me. Just you want to make money, and you want to make money out of me, so I trust that that's what you want to do. And and she did, after selling the first Verity Sparks, tell me how many rejections had been, and I can't remember the figure now, but a lot, because it was historical and it was a hard sell. So yeah, I'm not the best one with rejection. I just it does feel, it's all very well saying it's not personal, but it does feel personal.
It does feel personal. I think what I have found and works for me is just to get on and write the next thing, because all that's in our power of being writers is to write. And so, okay, this one didn't land, get on and write something else.
Draw a line. I also think, and the times when I've tried to think too much about the publisher and what they want and what I think the market is, and all of that. I really, I don't. That's not a great way to work for me. I find that's a bit deadening. The thing that I'm writing at the moment actually is a sort of an espionage thing set in the 1950s, and it's reading very much at the moment like a book that was written in the 1950s. And my protagonist is a librarian, and it's in the third person, but I forget what it's called, Meg, but where you have a lot of access to their thoughts. So she sounds very much like a librarian, and she likes big words, and I'm just going with that. I'm just going with that voice and not thinking about too much about a reader, because I reckon, I like it, and I like all sorts of books, so I'd like to read it, and someone else will. And my husband's been actually looking at different ways of publishing ebooks, and that's what I think I'll do. Because I think I am enjoying writing it. I will enjoy reading it when it's done, and other people might, and I'll just stick it up as an ebook, like
I've
free.
been lucky enough to hear some of it, and I love it so much. But I also think that's really good wisdom to just, to write the thing that really makes you happy, that you really enjoy writing, rather than trying to write into the niche of what you think the readers or the writer or the publisher wants. Because also, like, once it's actually ready, the industry's moved on. It's potentially looking for something else.
Yeah, it is. And also, there are phases and fads, and you might, because there's a long lead time with books being published, and you might think you're right on trend. Excuse me. You might think you're right on trend, but you're not. You're 2 years. It's moved. You might remember the big. I used to work as a bookseller, so you might remember that in the 2000s, big trend for misery memoirs, and they and they all had quite similar covers, often a deprived looking child, and it was like a handwriting sort of thing. And one of my friends was in Dimmicks, and she sent me a shot, and she titled it "Dimmick's Wall of Abused Kiddies." But it was like that, everyone was on that. So yeah, I think, no, I don't think it works to try and think too much, unless you write. I imagine the different thing is, unless you're writing genre fiction, that's the well, I read the other day that romance and romantasy, I don't know whether we were talking about this at the last retreat, are selling huge numbers as ebooks. And I imagine there might be, if you wanted to get into that, I imagine there might be some, like guidelines that are probably best to follow about what your readers are expecting. And I'm not being snobbish about that at all. I wrote 5 teenage romances, and I had such fun doing them.
But you are right. If you're writing into genre, you need to understand what the readers are expecting, so that you hit the mark. Because otherwise, also when you're putting it out, and you're submitting it to someone saying this is a romance or a romantasy,
doesn't hit the
they'll go, no, it's not.
no. Which it does remind me of, I had read I had read about that as a way of making income. Housewives were like doing the ironing, but you know, having this, you know, these red hot sex lines, you know, so they're on a speaker, so they're ironing away and I had a very good friend, Terry, and I said, now listen, like, he wasn't a boyfriend or anything, he's gay, but he was a good, so I said, pretend I'm ironing, and, you know, and he stopped me after about 5 minutes and said, Susan, all you've done is describe the room. You have just described the curtains, the bed, you know, no, this isn't going to work.
This is not your genre.
You can't do this. They don't want that. It's artistic, I said. It's setting the mood. No, no.
This is not your thing.
Not what they want. The teenage romances, that was interesting because obviously you had to have a romance. At that stage, it was a boy and a girl, and not too young, sort of 15, 16, not, we weren't wanting to go down. And my editor, who was great, said, now you can have sex, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And I did try, right, and I just, no, I can't do this. So yeah. No, and I think if you had sex, it might have had to have been safe sex, and I think that made it even worse.
Yeah. And if you had a teenager at the time as well, you'd be thinking, I don't want to think about you having sex.
No. And of course, you know, rough word counts come into things, don't they? And,
yeah, absolutely.
And
but not for first draft.
No, not for first draft. Though I do tend to kind of, things come to a natural.
Mm.
By now I end up kind of vaguely with a chapter length of 2,500 to 3,000 words, and that's kind of,
yeah, that's a good length for a chapter.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. What is home for you and your creative work?
What do you mean?
What feels like home when you're writing, when you're thinking about story?
Cool weather. I'm just thinking of all the things. Don't really do much writing in hot weather. Calm, cool weather, solitude, walking, toast, very important. Get really hungry. I just want carbs. I want toast. I don't play music. I like to tuck myself away. I write at home. I have, you know, gone on retreats, and I did have a couple of Varuna ones, and that's kind of fun as a novelty. But my small little workroom is just soaked with, you know, it's just full of the right vibes, I suppose. It's just soaked with me, bum on seat, sitting there, and it's kind of that good feeling of just, yeah, well, it is, it's coming home to me, to myself, to my writing self. Here I am. So I don't know if you're someone who writes in cafes. I know people.
I do sometimes, yeah. When I'm being naughty, actually, when I'm not getting to it, I'll go, all right, just pick it up and go sit in a cafe, because I started doing this way before COVID and way before people were sitting in cafes with laptops. And I used it as a kind of discipline that I didn't want to look like a wanker if I was not doing the work. So I'd have to do the work.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes I have, not in recent times, but I've said, right, I'll write for, 2 hours, and ended up just writing nonsense and random stuff. During last year, I bought a book, and I've forgotten the woman's name, but it was like a 100-day writing challenge, and I did it. I wrote every single day. I followed the prompts that she had, and some of them were not great. It was an American book, and I don't know if you know what I mean, but some of them were just a bit. They weren't our culture. They were American culture sort of stuff. They just weren't right. But I still wrote them, and that was really, really good, because I had been, after the first retreat that I did with you 2 years ago, everything went great guns, and then I don't know, life just happened. I went overseas, I got sick, my mother-in-law died, my husband wasn't well, my brother had, like, just life. And I thought, I want to start a writing practice again. And I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, that I just felt very proud of myself. I think I only missed one day. And again, with what we're talking about, finishing. I completed this. I persisted. I did this. Therefore, I can do this. So you prove to yourself that you can.
Yeah, it's almost like you are living out that sitting in discomfort moment, where you don't want to do the thing,
But you do the thing.
do the thing anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Susan. It has been so lovely talking to you. Of course, people will be able to find links to you and your books in the show notes. And yeah, thanks for joining.
It's been lovely. I always love talking to you. So thank you, Meg.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. I love chatting with you as well.